me on the tier. Dispensa latino. Go Brandon.
Mis saludos y respeto. Full blast. Greetings to all. Hopefully everybody's having a good day.
Simon que si.
What can I say? Tlasotlamati for the view. Thank you. Highly appreciate you guys stopping by. I want to get on this subject on a little history, and just real quick, man, I just want to mention this. Those of you that come in and enjoy my videos, my spills, thank you. My day ones, my original warriors, and of course, you know that YouTube is optional for everyone. If you don't like the direction that I'm taking or what I'm doing with this platform, or call it what you want to call it, then hey homie, by all means, you're more than welcome to kick, rabble, and travel.
Simon que si.
Hey, can't make everybody happy in this goddamn world. Pero, por favor, homie, like I said, if you don't like what you hear, hit the road, Jack. Anyhow, I want to talk about the streets. You know, it's a trip, pal. You know, history repeats itself. And I'm not talking about world history. I'm going to keep it local. I'm going to talk about the neighborhoods, or local communities, or local barrios. So, you know what direction I'm taking, so if you're not interested, por favor. Anyways, the other day I was talking to one of my uncles, older dude, call him a triple OG now, and we're talking about the neighborhood, and you know how back in the days he recalls how my neighborhood was not intended to be a barrio and what it is now. It was just simply a bunch of guys. Most were Mexican nationals, aka paisas, that were coming from Mexico, different parts of Central America, Mexico, started hanging out, but they were being bullied by the pochos. And not only my neighborhood, but I talked to a lot of raza, older paisanos, Mexican nationals. They went through a struggle back in the 70s, early 80s, where they were going through a lot of criticism. You know, they were being humiliated. They're being, so to speak, bullied because of them being Mexicanos, wetbacks. You know, they weren't up to the standards of the pocho, the American. The pochos, Mexican Americans, were looked down on the Mexicanos, Mexican nationals. You fucking chun and this and that. They were trying to jump them, beat them up. So, speaking in general, and I know my barrio was one of them that got together, but a group of dudes to defend themselves against these pochos or bullies that were preying on the paisas. Some of these paisas were considered chuntaros because the way they were dressing, you know, the estilo was a little somewhat like pachuco, but kind of like cholo, but the old school cholos, the ones that were wearing them hairnets, bandanas, hair slicked back, creased up, always looking G'd up. You know, some have their own little style where wearing long socks or them huaraches, special made huaraches from Mexico. You know what I'm talking about? So having their particular estilo, some of these pochos would look down on them like, pinches chuntaros, don't even speak English, this and that. So anyhow, you know, back then the lowrider scene was coming in. A lot of these Mexican nationals were fixing their Impalas, their Ramflas, you know, and started hanging out the boulevard, cruising. And my neighborhood back then, and I'm sure there's other barrios before they became neighborhoods, official barrios, they were car clubs in the 70s. Yeah, they were car clubs. My neighborhood was a car club before it became a barrio. And this I know because I spoke to a few of my OGs. And when he knew I was from the barrio, he was like, shook his head side to side, like, man, we didn't intend for this to get out of hand like it did, like it is right now. You know, we just simply got together to protect each other from bullies, from the pochos, you know, putting us down. And the reason he said that in a way with disappointment was because he knows me since I was a little kid. And he changed his life. He became a Cristiano. He serves, you know, God. And he changed his evil ways. Much respect. So, you know, you saw a lot of that back in the 70s. And I'm not, and I'm sure it wasn't just Mexican Americans, the pochos bullying the Mexican nationals, paisas. I'm sure there was other races, you know, trying to bully these little Mexicans. Cause I mean, as you guys know, a lot of the majority of them, you know, raza were little guys, little dudes. Hey, bro, don't get it twisted, man. These little dudes have big hearts. Too big for the body to function. Yeah, like that, huh? And going back to the neighborhood thing, the 70s, a lot of these barrios were car clubs, and then they became barrios. And everybody has their own history. I know that there's a few neighborhoods in the valley that have a similar beginnings as we do. Now, in the 80s, I remember I have a few uncles as well from that generation. They were playing football back in the days. And some of these barrios in Pacoima, in the Valle, they started, they were football teams. A bunch of kids hanging out, representing their high school football team. And, hey, that little group, you know, little by little, started just representing, you know, that their local street, their local city, and boom, became a neighborhood. And a lot of the barrios, maybe in the late 80s, that's how they came about, out of football teams. And mind this, some of these individuals, they're family, and let's say in the 70s, you had a homie gangbanging his little brother in the 80s. In the 80s, it was his time to shine. But I think the 90s and 2000s, these local neighborhoods that were that came about were taggers. This is now a new generation. You see what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say, and how, you know, going back to the Pachuco days, and then we got the homies in the 70s, the Paisas migrating to the United States, Southern Califas, and from there, I mean, some of them made their way up north, and I'm sure you guys heard a little history from these other channels and how, you know, the ones that hit prison, they came about their little groups and so on and so forth. But it all started in the South, and then from there, it would just started branching out up north, Central California, and to different states nationwide. It's a trip, looking back on history, and how these generations all have different point of views, different get downs. They do different things, have different perspectives, beliefs, but all pretty much narrowed down to being a group and being down for each other, representing each other to the fullest. Basically a cause. Yeah, man. And nowadays, I mean, I see a lot of rappers. I see rappers now, like young Mexicanos, Chicanos, Latinos, and those groups being embraced into local neighborhoods. I'm not saying that everybody's getting jumped in and rapping and being from a barrio. I'm not saying all that, but I kind of see that little vibe there. But it's a trip, man. Everything changes. The estilo, the lingo, and I mean, hey, it's part of growing up. It's part of evolving. It's part of times changing. Yeah, man. All right, man. I just thought I'd share my little point of view. I was talking to some of my uncles and some of the homies about this. How in the 70s, car clubs, homies came together, cruising, fixing their cars, hanging out on the boulevard with the hyenas, having fun, and going to the drive-ins, to the club, discos, I guess they called them before. One thing led to another. Little fights, little rumbles, and barrios started forming, and que aquí para esta calle or this city, and que puro buti woo. And in the 80s, you had these kids into football. In the 80s, you had a lot of Raider fans out here. You had a lot of football fans out here, Rams and stuff. We had football in that league. So, like the local high schools were recruiting their guys, their local football teams and stuff. So these guys, growing up in the hood, hanging out in the calles, looking up to their older brothers from the 70s, and started claiming a certain calle, city. varrio came about. Yeah, I believe it like in the late 90s, 2000s, the taggers came. Oh man, you hear about clubs, the rebels and all that. Some of them ended up being, you know, gang members, getting jumped into neighborhoods or making their own little cliques. All these sides not educational for those miserable individuals that tell me what to do. Cortatela, homie. Anyways, with that said, much love and respect. This is Manny the Jaguar. Oh, no, Manny the Jaguar man. Out. Chin up.